Okay, all right. So here we are again. Is it a year? Is it?
It's
What is
almost
it?
exactly a year.
It's almost exactly a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing to notice: horses standing. That's like a good thing. It's didn't look like it was going to be that way a year ago.
It's more alert in the video.
Yep. Yep. And okay.
He's friendly.
He's
So-
totally friendly.
You what?
He's friendly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's his name?
So this is Boots.
Oh,
Boots?
Yeah. And we're
Yep.
so grateful that everybody came and that you're here. This is meaningful for us and we need it, so we're thankful.
I love the horses here.
It's like such a variety, but not usually past their 30s. And often not quite there either.
And he and the one right behind you are great friends, and
And horses are herd animals, so they just, being kept separate is really hard on them, so they survive by being together, so, these two are inseparable, basically. And that's one of his
Did the
main
person
fears.
touch the horse? It kind of looked like the
Yeah,
person
yeah,
who
yeah,
touched
yeah.
the horse.
no, I did ride horses till I decided I was not. Never
You're
gonna
totally
do it
welcome to
again.
come touch him on the
But
side here
you're
too,
right.
if anybody wants to, or he's,
How
So-
did they? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, the reason they're herd animals is because even though they're really big, they're like almost completely defenseless. I mean, they can kick and whatnot, but if you get like behind the horse, so like basically a little bobcat will jump on the back of the neck, and that's the end of the horse, even though it's like a small little. And so the best way to sort of defend against that is to have just different horses looking at different angles. Oh, it's like ahead of me.
What's
How much
that?
is
What's
7
that?
plus 1?
Can't you read, Doc?
So, okay. So, approaching the patient, just your general impressions. If you just made believe you just took a photograph and just sort of looked at it, at that photograph, how would you describe the animal, the sort of the coat of it, and
Is he shy? Is he
the-
pulling away?
yeah, but I'm not even talking
Not
about like
physical.
emotions or anything, just like a picture, just like so the last time I think there was, the last time
He
Butch
should.
was having a really hard time breathing, so you could see, I can't remember if it had like a Hebron and.
he started to have that Hebron, yeah.
So you could see like a kind of
He had what?
you can see sort of like a line of a muscle sort of struggling to suck air in, and yeah.
And this would be the worst time of year for him, the last bunch of years, so, really, really, really thrilled that his horse is not heaving and
Why would this be the worst time of year?
the last 4 or 5 years, it just was. Once it got hot, I don't know if it was pollen, warm, moist, but every spring, late winter, spring, early summer was horrible for him.
He
Because
has
it's
a problem
cold
right
right
now.
He a little bit of red, a little in his hoof, but he was never lame, nothing ever, no bones moving, anything like that, but the very beginning touches of it, yeah. And
Is he shedding?
he's totally shedding, so
Is that more than normal?
very normal. We're kind of probably 2/3 of the way through, but he's on time, so this would be a kind of normal
Mhm.
timing, yeah.
And then so just moving on, then there's the picture of the animal, what's it look like? And if you compared the picture from before to now, which, we don't have that, but I don't have it but in my mind's eye, he was much more fragile, much sort of, I don't know if the word is thinner, but just sort of emaciated feel to him. And then you kind of have to look at how is he sort of moving and comparing him to the other horse that was just sort of frisky and just sort of bouncing all over the place, trying to come out of the stall. And you know, how's he moving? And then going through the sort of behavior of the animal. You know, is it sort of frightened of all of us? Is he sort of aggressive towards us? Is he sort of, you know, what's he, you know,
Is it a
what's,
sample?
Oh, Jody.
oh, excellent, wait. Bring that around. And,
Well, it's
every-
nice. No.
everybody
We love that book.
everybody just sort of take it, yeah. So,
Take it away.
No, thank you.
so one of the things you notice is it kind of looks a little bit like it ought to. In other words, it's sort of solid-ish, but not too solid, but not too watery. And you don't have it to compare it to last time. But last time there's all this sort of watery, sort of, I can't even say just undigested. It just sort of, it was like just this stuff coming out. So, yeah, good.
We're good here?
Yep. Kind of smells as it should, and kind of looks as it should, and okay. So then back to the behavior for a second. So how many of you are like, what's the best way to say? How many of you are completely terrified of this animal right now? Like petrified, terrified. Yeah, so even if you've never been around horses, or even if you're kind of scared of horses, or kind of scared of big animals, whatever, they're all different anyway. And if the animal needs, you know, stramonium, or belladonna, or hyoscyamus, or vericimabum, or even lycopodium, that they can be sort of have a aggressive attitude towards you, either snoring towards you, or sort of just sort of being big and sort of kind of attacking. Is that what you're seeing here?
No.
No, it's like, it's not exactly hiding behind mom, but it's like, it's also not very far away from mom. You know, it's kind of more like that. And yeah, and then if you were just sort of curious, you just go up to the horse, and you can go up to the horse in a sort of mild way or sort of threatening way or whatever. Just see your stress onto the animal, just see how it responds to you. Or if you're kind of soft towards it, just sort of just see how it responds towards you. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I don't trust horses, sometimes, but I trust him, but I'm not gonna push it.
If you do want to,
You don't- you
come
don't
up
have to-
with me. I mean, and right here is a really safe.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that.
But
I
no
just don't-
pressure,
I
no
don't wanna
pressure.
stand behind him.
You don't want to
Yeah,
be
you don't
behind a
wanna
horse.
stand
No,
Agreed.
The
Yeah.
horse
Yeah.
doesn't want you back there either. So.
No,
Why is he doing like this with the head?
Oh, all horses do.
It's something to talk about. He does this like, and he also pawed before.
Mm.
So I do think he does it when he wants something often. You can't see right in front of him, so yeah.
This
now
is
you can see.
there's like right here, it's a blind spot
Ah,
for all horses.
so that's why he's like.
You're
Yeah.
like-
You're
No,
like
if you go
exactly
like
where you
this,
ought not to
gotta-
be.
But on the side or whatever, he can.
Yeah.
They don't have 180-degree vision with his eyes bulging out like that?
Yes, but there's like a blind spot like
Yeah.
right here, and and it's because of how far back the eyes are set compared to the rest of the skull.
I mean, some horses, if you walked up to them with your palms facing, because they're prey, that's like, they totally would freak. But when their head's down, yeah, they can pretty much see all directions when they're grazing or whatever.
All right, so the there's a couple of things. There was the respiratory stuff that was going on. There was this digestive stuff that was going on. And for lack of a better term, when people start having blood sugar problems and stuff before they become diabetic, they get something called metabolic syndrome, which is you weigh a little bit too much, you can't handle the sugars right, you start getting breakdowns that kind of lead to diabetes in animals. And so what you do is you change the diet. You like stop eating carbs and start eating, more natural foods. So horses do the same thing, but instead of breaking down just blood vessels here and there, like when people have diabetes and stuff, they kind of ruin the blood vessels in the eyes and the kidneys and stuff. So this thing down here that kind of looks like a nail kind of thing, that's there's something called laminitis, which is this sort of the blood vessels that sort of hold those pieces in place with the rest of the animal. Those blood vessels start getting inflamed, and once that happens, it's very difficult for the horse, because the horse can't really, if you start getting problems with that, the horse is going to go. And so one of the biggest challenges that has been in working with horses and owning horses and taking care of horses is how to keep them from getting laminitis. So one of the things they realize, like in England and the way they treat them in other countries, is just let them be outside and eating grass and eating sort of natural kind of things. But when you just are eating sort of hay and like whatnot, that's like McDonald's basically. So it like predisposes you to get diabetes. So that's how they get their sort of metabolic. And while you can't see it, you start to notice that they're starting to walk really kind of funny. And then if you're curious, then you just feel it. And we'll just let you do it, Roger. You just feel it.
Is that what's wrong with them?
I don't know what you're
and-
talking about.
Wait, and what you'll
Oh.
feel is warmth.
Oh, I see the
Who
who's
Is
the
this
war.
something that
Yeah.
would tend to,
Right on.
more likely to occur at the end of the winter if they've had a diet?
Laminitis is laminitis.
Laminitis is
Yeah,
laminitis.
yeah,
It's not
it could be,
seasonal.
and once you get it, it's really hard to like,
Yeah, to get rid of it.
to get rid of it, and a lot of times it just sort of gets worse and worse and worse.
Is
And
that
then,
what's wrong with them?
so
No.
last year, on the follow-up, there was warmth someplace. I forget
Yeah.
if it was in one of
So
the
one of
limbs
the
or.
weird things is it shifts. It shifts between all of his hooves, and normally with this laminitis, you feel warmth, you feel a pounding pulse, like anybody could feel it down there, and they become lame. They can't major pain. So, he never became lame. He never had big crazy pulses, but he did have a little inflammation in his foot. So, and that warmth comes and goes.
Which is not there right now.
Right now they feel good.
Well,
Yeah,
okay, when
that's a
they're,
good thing.
when
by
they're
the way.
warm,
So you
when
haven't
they're
found any
inflamed.
McDonald's wrappers in the stall there?
Is it, would it be, if the horse has to put its foot down, would that be like I had a splinter under my fingernail and I had to tap it on the desk or something?
No,
Is
It's
this is more like,
tissue.
much more serious. This
It's
is
the
not like
number one
it looks like a
killer
nail.
horses besides colic.
Yeah.
The laminitis and colic kill them. And what would give it to him is if we turned him out on this grass. This rich spring grass is like full of sugar, and
Oh,
now that
that's
it's been
bad for
watered,
it?
Yep.
Oh.
And in England and other places besides the U.S., they figured out that horses shouldn't be just turned out on grass like that. But here in this country, it's a little slow. So, but yeah, later in the summer it becomes less rich, and depending on the horse, how active, it's better. But yeah, grass equals McDonald's.
Yeah, maybe in the past when they didn't eat savage horses, they didn't eat during the winter,
It's
so
just-
they needed to have this.
And just
Sugar.
work,
They would graze and move.
what do we tell people that are sort of getting diabetes? don't just sit at home eating McDonald's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
watching TV.
Don't just
Go
be in the
work,
stable.
plow
Yeah.
the land,
Sure.
and you know,
Cause there's no activity, is that the thing, there's no activity?
there's no activity and so it's just like it's a bad combination of stuff.
So you have to get him outside and get him working, but he mustn't eat the grass. So what do? You have to ride him all the time, or?
You build a new barn and you create an alleyway between the two barns.
Oh, yeah.
And you feed them over there, but you make their water be over here, and you don't build stalls, you just give them a covering. And then they're so curious, horses,
Yeah.
that they always wanna go see what's over there, and they just start moving.
So they're walking around and can't get at the grass.
Right.
Walking, just get 'em-
Moving,
keep them busy.
playing,
Uh-huh.
curious,
I
yeah.
see.
So you're curious. Are you? Boo,
This doesn't look very curious.
wake up.
So this,
You look kinda fascinated.
All right, so first of all, what's the main complaint now? How's he doing? Just walk us through what happened and where we are today.
So he's basically the breathing significantly improved. He maintained respiratory issues in that he would have fast breathing rates when it was hot and sunny, but it never became labored. And what ameliorated that was an ice cold water bath. His breathing rate would be cut in a quarter and be fine. So so that was great. His teeth started to deteriorate since we were last here. Mostly normal age stuff. So his diet has had to change a little bit to make sure he's getting nutrients and all of that. But all summer long, he had a ton of diarrhea. Just loose stool, diarrhea, and some of it might have been the hay was too coarse and different things, but I never gave him a remedy or anything. He was managing it. He never got dehydrated. Tissue around his anus never got like super irritated or anything. So probiotics and all that kind of a thing. It eventually got better in the fall.
1 gram.
How much probiotics?
Yeah.
It's a world.
What probiotics do you give a horse? Yogurt?
It's like it's a whole
Special
world.
horse
of
program.
yeah. I mean, it's like an industry has built
All
up.
right,
around.
okay.
But anyway, and then this fall he started to show like neurologic abnormalities. Basically starting to twitch in his face, in his muzzle, his nose, his mouth, and it didn't go away. It was becoming kind of more present. And then we had kind of the regular vet out and neurologically and blood work, everything checked out fine. There was a question of whether he had EPM, equine protozoal myobrain inflammation, a thing that they get from possums. That was kind of inconclusive. But so basically it started to get worse, and the twitching switched to his jaw, moving back and forth, grinding, and that I gave him a dose of Serinum this fall, like December or so, and there was no change. And what happens next? Then it's getting worse. Then it's starting to close his eyes while he's doing it. His ears are starting to twitch, but it's all in his face. I'm also doing we have an acupuncture happening through all of this, and nothing seems to be helping. I work with a homeopathic vet, Joyce Harmon, and over the phone, and gave him agar, agaricus, and basically, I don't know if I should go into why or whatever, but and he improved somewhat in that, like, there was a little bit less twitching. Well, the jaw stuff lessened a little bit. He was worse for the first 24 hours, actually, Then he was better for like a week. And then about 3.5 weeks into it, he'd been very still. We opened up gates for the first time. He like ran for the first time in a couple months. And then 2 days later, he came down with a fever and a bunch of bright yellow snot coming out of his left nostril. So I was pretty scared, and the local vet kind of came out. So we put him on antibiotics for 5 days because they thought it was an upper respiratory infection, which I don't think it was really. But he was like much better for those next 5-10 days.
With
Well,
antibiotics.
Yes, but also right after this thing just burst. Well, I don't know what it is, but now I've been thinking it might be a cyst that's up there or something. So I don't know. And then he started to not do well again, more twitching. But what was starting to happen through all of this is that he became more withdrawn and vacant and weak. Yeah. So the weakness became actually right from the get-go was part of this. He became exhausted from exercise, low energy, super weak. Because I ride him, and so he would just not want to go. He would literally sort of be stubborn about going. He'd be breathing hard. And then just around there, he became so dull. And the only time he's not dull, and this is still true for the most part, is right before meals, where he can get really energetic and show a ton of run around. He's like wants his food and he wants it now. He starts rolling around, bucking, running,
But like he's happy or what?
like frustrated, like just like bursts of energy that he can't. And this is a little bit of a,
Like when he does that, like it's after he wanted to like go that way and do stuff. Is that like I'm annoyed or am I like?
so one of the, it's hard. So they just had dinner before you came, and it's absolutely worse after eating, and it's worse after drinking.
Yeah,
What
Roger
is
is right there.
the
Look.
These episodes. So I call them episodes, but what it turned into is the twitching became less of the bigger thing, and his vacancy and total checked out, slowed to react, became super present. But through all of it, I could always interrupt it. Like I could always interrupt the twitching, interrupt his vacancy by going up to him, calling his name. So we did a repeat of the agar. He got much worse, meaning the worst symptoms of both vacancy and this jaw neuro stuff and closing of his eyes. It seemed like a lot of head pain, maybe some dizziness or something because he started to shift his body weight through it or something. And so that happened, and then a month ago, kind of re-repertorized and tried Helleboros. And
You gave him an antibiotic.
so he's right now on a 6C daily Helleboros for 1 month. And some other, does everybody feel safe and okay? He's fine.
He just wants
Okay.
to say, hey, what's
Totally.
going on?
He likes her.
It seemed like he was
What's
back
not to
in
like?
some yummy on.
Going down and reading.
Did he seem like he went back into like the serenum state after the antibiotics? Like that, was it the same picture or a different type of weakness? And
It was not like it was a year ago. It was like, it's all new. This vacancy, weakness, fully checked out. And he does these little mini episodes where he like can't get comfortable. He's restless. And it's almost like dementia because he's like not sure of his spot. He'll just like stop in a weird spot. Then he kind of gets startled and drinks water and then tries to go eat hay, but like sniffs the hay but can't eat the hay, and then just gets quiet again into these states of twitchy vacancy. So that was his jaw.
it looks like, is he in, it's almost like a.
It's happening right now. This is
Is it,
Like
is
what are the
it
seizures
like
called?
a
The
little
absence
epilepsy,
seizure or something?
Mhm.
epilepsy thing, like an absence?
Where, Joe?
is he like absent, like an
It's
absence in
like
him?
an epileptic absence.
Yeah, I don't, I haven't gotten the, I'm calling them episodes, but I don't know that they're seizures at all. And I've sort of asked other veterinarians and stuff, and they don't think it's a seizure, but I don't know. They are these episodes.
But do you know if he does this movements and head after he's... Well, there is a moment where he was still, completely, almost falling asleep, and then he was doing it after.
Yeah, so I do
Like-
think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And the Helleborus, because, I mean, he was like trying to break out of it, like he'll be in the midst of it, and then he's like throws his head up.
So the head bobbing is part of it?
Yeah, in the midst of these, he'll come out of it and kind of shake his head like that. And it happens day, night, all the time, but there's this other thing, which is that in the sunlight, if the sun is hitting his left eye, he will do this whole other thing where he twitches and his whole head shifts to the left. And it's, if I put a mask on and block the sun, it stops. So it's, and that started last winter. Went away with the Serenum and came back. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, a lot of times, horses will get a trigeminal neuralgia that relates to sunlight, and when they get that, we experience it as pain. One of the things you see with horses is they start doing this sort of heaving thing, just some sort of ticky twitchy stuff. The thing with agaricus is a lot of times what will stop that is some sort of in materia medica with agaricus. We talk about neurologic stuff where the person feels like they're under control by some superhuman whatever. It's sort of like a delusional state. So agaricus would be like that if you just sort of walk up to it in some way and just present yourself as a sort of like a, oh, okay, I'll be okay now because this person will take care of me. That sort of thing. Or I guess an example that maybe when we talked about agaricus, I was talking about how this horse would just go kind of crazy and it kind of work its way up to a post in the field and just be like right here, it's like, and it would stop. It's just, oh my God, finally, this post will tell me what to do, basically. and it just would just sort of just chill out, and the horse was not rideable because you can only ride the horse during the daylight, and as soon as it was like in daylight, it wouldn't even have to be the sun. It would just start heaving in a completely uncontrollable way, and agaricus just really calmed the whole thing down. But that's not what you get here. You get this sort of ticky twitchy stuff, but it's that's one side of it, and sort of trance-like part is the other side of it. It's not about control. It's not about it's a sort of trance-like thing.
And normally,
So this is sorry. So this is like an example of where the sort of problem with materia medica in not just case taking, not just in the veterinary world, but just in homeopathy in general, where you take symptoms out of context, but there's so many remedies that can present with that symptom that it just seems like a reasonable thing. But if you can kind of understand where the context of that symptom, you're much more likely to find a remedy that will sort of help.
I mean, because I could stop him if I walked up, I didn't know, like, he would give over the responsibility.
Yeah.
But he normally is very, consolation. He loves consolation. He's extrovert. People wants to be touched, but during these episodes, he does not want to be touched.
But he's totally backing away from Paul and going.
You notice that?
It's frustrating. Do you mind grabbing like a little hay? We'll just give him a little hay right here.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not really that hungry. So, yeah.
And he's also still having loose stool right now. It's on and off. So 2 days ago I came out and the wall was wet. You know,
Did that ever go away? And
It got much better, yes.
You did a really good one before you came.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, really nice. Solid number 2, it wasn't like 1.5.
Individual pieces just the right size.
Okay.
Perfect.
He wasn't shy about it.
Are his hooves still hot? And
No,
no.
you can touch
We're gonna check his tongue?
it. You want to
That's
see
a
it.
lot of
You
it.
want to see
Yeah,
it.
you can just throw it on the ground.
Oh, yumbo.
Mm.
So I gauge whether he's doing better after his grain, with whether or not he eats his hay after. So if he's eating his hay, it's like seems like he's doing better. And the other days he can't, it's like 20 minutes to an hour where he's like in this twitchy state before he'll start to eat. And his eating feels like with a new vengeance to it. He's like not normal appetite, it feels kicked up again. When he's not in the trans state and he is eating after grain, it's like rocking
Is he
and rolling.
overeating?
No, he's okay, yeah. And they're meant to eat 24/7, so, yeah.
Can you like move the food like 5 or 6 inches away?
And see if he,
Just
and
so it
let him
happens.
go to it?
Yeah.
There's your answer.
Okay. Alright, so just, it's a follow-up, but it's a long time since you've seen your patient. So when it's ever like a long time since you've seen your
He likes
patient,
them too.
then you might as well just do like a whole review of system, just because things may have changed. So, digestion and problems, chewing or swallowing, not inside these episodes, but chewing or swallowing or stomach colic, anything.
No,
And then,
Jody's looking at me. Well, his teeth, jump in, but, his teeth have deteriorated, so he's having trouble in that way. It's mechanical and it all makes sense, but do you wanna add?
He will have sporadic diarrhea.
Oh, yeah,
can you predict when?
it's worse usually in the heat. And I think it goes with like the faster breathing rate starts to kick up and there's stress on his system
Yep.
often then, but just not always, sometimes in the heat.
Really? Nice, oh. Okay, and any blood, or can you tell me anything about when it's sort of liquid and what it looks like, or smells like, or?
It'll have a
sorry.
stronger smell. And it seems like it gives him a little bit of discomfort. It doesn't seem to have any different color or film to it. It doesn't seem lighter or darker. And it can go from just being normal looking with like a squirt of liquid in the middle or after, or like the whole thing can be super liquid.
Urinary stuff?
He's just peeing more than he used to. And he's drinking a ton right now. He's thirsty. He just wants to, sometimes he'll just go and touch the water. And he's like not even drinking, but he also does drink.
And me?
So just to be clear, we're laughing at the other horse, right? Yeah. So that horse is very psychotic in nature.
That horse didn't get a snack, right?
There's like 2 full hay bags right there.
Oh. This might be better.
Just to make
You
sure
are
Brooks
the
doesn't
snack.
go anywhere.
Yeah. And then, so respiratory stuff now, when it's at its worst, how can you tell there's a problem? Are you hearing it? Are you seeing it? What do you?
So his breathing rate will go up faster and faster and faster in the sun. He definitely has like a runny nose. It's clear. Not necessarily one side or the other with that. And today he coughed.
Did not
Oh, and his nostrils flare, right, when it's fast breathing rate. And what helps him is to be in the cool shade, which he always says, they're turned out and loose, and he goes and stands out in the sun, which makes his head twitch and his breathing worse, but he chooses to do it.
Stays there anyway.
Yes. So when it was really bad, I'd lock him in a stall during the first half of the day just to, like, you can't be out in the sun right now.
And what would happen if you locked him in the stall?
He's fine with it.
So it's just like, here I am now.
Yep. She's like not fine with that kind of thing, but he's like, okay.
But I mean, there are options to go and stand under a tree if he wants to, and he doesn't do it.
Right.
Right.
He loves the sun. And then today,
No, he was just coughing a bunch today. And he'll do that from time to time.
Do horses
Okay.
get diabetes?
That's what I was
yeah.
This is like the pre-diabetes. This is like the equivalent of a pre-diabetes.
Okay.
Concerned with the thirst and the peeing.
With the
and
peeing and
Yeah.
the thirst,
That's,
yeah. I
that's
know.
like what I was saying
And
about
like
the
muscle
sort of
loss right here.
Oh, yeah.
the
Um,
metabolic syndrome.
But I've
Okay.
tested him as recently as this winter for insulin levels and all of his stuff, and he's okay. He's not like in the zone of stuff yet.
Is he ever like confused? I mean, yeah, so I mean, I think that's kind of what we're talking about, but.
Yeah, he'll
like
just
he's
like think he needs to move, and like and now his body's in like the spot that it's like there's no reason for it to be there. It didn't used to be there. You know, he like pauses, or he just ate dinner, and then he comes back over as if he hasn't eaten dinner again. Yeah, it's starting to feel like that.
Like with the sun, being in the sun, not realizing that's not.
Although
causing
that one he loves.
He's
You
always
just
on the
want-
side.
He loves warmth. Like all winter, he knows the exact spot that the sun
But it
first hits.
aggravates him.
Right.
I mean, are they in heated buildings at all, or no, they're not? And that's better for them to not be in
They
heated.
they live in heated bodies.
Okay,
It's just so big.
yeah.
You think he's cold? Does he shiver?
gets colder. He never shivers, but since he's gotten older, I put a blanket on him in the winter. He doesn't do great when he gets cold. It seems like that sort of stresses him out a bit.
I think he goes in the sun because it's cold.
Yeah, I mean, definitely he loves, and they both will. I mean, yeah, after a sub-zero night, they're all about that first sun. Yeah.
So the first time we gave Serrano, the last time we were here, did we give a remedy?
We did a wait.
We did a wait. Will we talk about remedies?
We
Like what
talked
it's
about
moving
remedies
towards?
the first time. Antimonium,
Tartaric.
tea,
Not the issue
Carbo-veg.
anymore.
You talked
Not the
about.
issue anymore.
I had given him lycopodium before all that, but
Yeah.
flaring nostrils, that hadn't helped.
Yeah, no.
So those were like the,
So you
Yeah.
saw him in the fall class.
It's like a year,
Okay.
yeah. And then again,
you saw him in the spring and then in the, I think, fall, a few
Yeah.
months later.
okay, so,
And it's, I mean, I can't ride him. We can't even take him for walks up the road. His weakness, it's like life has changed
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah.
This horse doesn't, and he just,
But yet you said
when
he
these
gallops
episodes are
from-
bad,
You said he gallops from barn to barn though.
well, now he walks, but that one time,
Oh.
yes. And right before meals, he freaks and does buck and all of that. But, yeah, he's like, I mean, I just wasn't sure whether we were gonna survive this neuro stuff, this level. When the episodes are bad, his eyes are closed. He's like, it feels like I'm watching torture, you know. He's just, I think it's pain. But, you know, you check their heart rate as a way to, anyway, I don't know if it's pain, it seems like it
But
might be.
it's not seizures.
Well, how would you know if it is the Georgia?
Well, I didn't know if there's a way I know nothing about horses.
yeah, you're doing great.
Well,
You
there
didn't-
is-
Local vet is like,
you
I
didn't-
just fallen asleep
You didn't pet him yet.
or something.
No, I didn't, but before,
Do you want to?
And the trigeminal, I had the acupuncturist and stuff out, and we were working on, but it's always seemed fine, and
I tend, no, I
What
tend
is
not
this
to go
about his eyes?
Is it with babies that you see the bulging? about-
he had, and he, so the other thing to just say in context is like, over the last 7 years, he's had all these problems, including the first one being, he's the one horse in the history of horses that was allergic to this, cream we ended up putting in his eyes from, and so he's had eye surgery, you know, then he's had 2 tick diseases with big fevers, and then the breathing and the diarrhea, you know, he's like had these different, he's super sensitive and, yeah.
Do horses get dementia?
Yeah, I think, you know, they have,
I mean, there's not a lot of ways you could tell, but I wondered if lots of people have horses and lots of horses, I thought maybe.
I mean, it certainly has shown up in, again, it started with like this neuro stuff
Yeah.
that was at the forefront, and then the neuros and the jaw started to get a little quieter, and this vacancy, just total out of it, became more of the forefront over the last couple months. But yeah, it does sort of seem like dementia or
Does he ever
something.
confuse to you or the people he knows? Like, does it ever seem like he doesn't, he's scared of you or?
If I walk up to him during one of these episodes, he doesn't, he's grouchy, he doesn't want to be touched, and that's like totally not his normal.
So like pulling his body away from you,
Nervous
kicking you,
system.
or?
Not that, not to that level. He just turns away.
Does it recognize you? Like, you know, like it's not that he doesn't recognize.
He does, you know, and I only know that from when other people are with him and I walk away, he'll stay focused on me and that kind of a thing. I mean, I see him as a really curious, like, you know, I just call him the mayor, like, and she is very anxious, and the idea that he's out here and she's in there is a little bit of a nightmare for her. There's the chance that we're about to walk away and leave her,
So how do they interact?
He's a little more alpha. She's like a little more submissive, but since he's been getting sick and she's been getting a little more comfortable, that's like been shifting a little bit. But they hang together 24/7, you know.
You just have 2 here, but if, I don't know how horses act in herds when they're by themselves. You know, if there is an old horse that's vulnerable and a little bit off their rocker, you know, do the other horses take care of them? Do they abandon them? I just wondered.
Yeah, and like wild, like in domestic or wild,
Just-
Wild.
The way horses are when they're being horses together.
yeah. I mean, I think often in the wild, worms and different things get that, they don't necessarily live to this
No,
age.
no.
So, but there is like a whole family structure of caring, and actually sometimes the eldest and not the strongest can still be the alpha, which I sort of love, that it's not necessarily about who can fight the best.
Who has
it-
wisdom?
Seniority and.
There is, it's about presence, which is like why it's so, you know, in working with them, it's, you know, it's about
Well, I was
presence
just
more.
thinking about like elephants, they have such a
Mm.
social structure, and I didn't know what the social structure was.
Does he get scared when you think that he doesn't recognize what he's doing or if he's there? That he doesn't.
Not
Just
so
not
much.
All right,
Confused.
so what do we have?
Hmm.
Let's get back to this.
All right, I have a question about the discharge.
Yeah.
And, I mean, is it possible, because that was 5 days after the remedy or something, 3? I mean, I'm not doubting the infection, but I'm just curious if that was a human and that came to my office, like, do you suppress that, you know,
Yeah.
infection, or do you let it watch it and do some other supportive stuff?
That
I'm not.
nostril, that bright orange
Yeah.
thing, it was about 3.5 weeks after,
Oh, okay, the
that,
remedy,
that
that
remedy.
agaricus.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
okay. I thought it was
But like 2 days after this like exuberant physical thing, that I don't know if that's connected or not. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, needing to, it would be great to have a diagnosis of what it is, because if somebody has a neurologic ticky twitchy thing, that's different than if there's like a tumor, which is like a different thing. I mean, you'd like to know what it is, but would you mind if I just draw on this I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I sort of think that would be amazing. I'm like, go for it.
Kidding.
Yeah, put a piece
Paul,
of plexiglass
you can do
over
it.
the side of it. Control the horse. Paul Herskew was here.
No, I'm kidding. So you have like a few sort of key symptoms. You've got all the ticky, twitchy stuff you want. Put it all in one, so somebody should write these down, in all seriousness. Just so we can like, we can just, if you can email these things to me, it'd be great.
Are you gonna write it?
So, so all the ticky twitchy stuff that we've said is the jerking, head jerking, and then jerking any direction you want, then
Horse in the
head
sun.
motion.
Horse in the sun.
Right, come to that in a second. Then the sort of movement, sort of head movement sideways, head movement up and down. And then what did you say
The leg.
blinking?
Closing of the eyes.
And like a squeezing.
Squinching or,
Yeah,
Squeezing eyes.
squeezing eyes. And then is that different? The sort of slamming the
That's
sort of,
different. It's not part of that. It
Yeah.
comes at different points.
but it's something that is new or aggravated or accentuated in here?
Accentuated
Alright,
and aggravated.
so, kicking,
Horse sideways.
kicking the jaw, moving sideways, motion of the jaw. So all those things, and then, thank you, and then sneezing. The sort of sneezing part is, so you got all those things. So separately, you've got, and I don't know what we're gonna do with it yet, but let's just put these all down. You've got the sort of loose stool or water with the stool or any of the, it's not straight up diarrhea, but let's just say watery stools. You got this sort of discharge from the nose, which is sort of yellow. And was there any other discharges?
No, when
the
he,
cough, I
he-
mean, that's.
when he had the fever, he sweat when he broke he like sweat a ton. But besides that,
It's all excited before he
peeing
eats.
a lot.
Peeing a lot, yep, so just increased urination. What did you say you did today? Coughing?
Coughing.
So let's just put the coughing with the movement for now, so just the coughing. Alright, so you've got those pieces, and then you've got this sort of as a third idea, this sort of vacancy. So just mind sort of staring and just any of the rubrics that might refer to sort of vacancy.
And the weakness.
And then weakness. You've got different kinds of weakness. So which weakness does he have?
Lack of stamina, but what would that?
He lays down a lot. too.
Weariness.
Weariness. Let's just go generalities, weakness, generalities, weariness, generalities, fatigue.
And sleeping? Does he
Oh.
sleep more?
He
She
sleeps a
said he
lot
sleeps a lot.
and well, and that's always been the case. He's comfortable, so he lays down and.
There's something about like being in the sun and not being able to get out of it. Now, I don't know if it's because he's still enjoying it and it's not aggravating him,
Right.
or just not connecting that, yeah, making a connection.
So separately,
So
let's take the chilliness, or let's say chilly. And then yeah, take the shivering, take it with the discharge. Take it wherever we put the sneezing and coughing
The chilling, we
shivering,
put it
all
with the
that.
weakness.
just, yeah, you take the chilliness with the weakness. And then, alright, so then try to sequence things as best you can, or if you can't, just start asking the parents, you know, when does Junior have that staring? What's the most likely time that it's staring? And they'll say, well, it can happen anytime. You would say, okay, fine, but can it be morning, afternoon, evening, at night? I'll say, yes, it could be, but is one of the more common. And then is it, just ask modalities around that, because anything you could do to get a modality will either give you a new segment, or it'll give you somehow a sequence to an existing segment.
Well, there is consolation, ameliorates, eating ameliorates, and get excited before eating. And he gets wakes up
It was-
in
it
that
was
moment.
He does
Patience.
get wild
Huh?
before he's.
Impatience before eating.
Yeah, I don't know if it's excitement, impatient,
Or it's tuning
impatient.
in.
Jumps.
And
Which
did you
is
say you
Sunlight,
interrupted
the
the
warmth of the
staring,
sunlight.
it would interrupt the staring with your attention? Or-
If I call his name, offer him food, go up and touch him, I can interrupt the ticky twitchy, the vacancy. He can like be as if everything's totally great. Hi, great, amazing, and then right back and be like in it.
So he'll like get out of it, then he falls back into it.
Yeah.
It's like a momentary,
It almost reminds me of a
Wake
person
up.
who's embarrassed by it and like puts on a show, but that's not what's happening. But yeah, he can really seem robust right in the middle of it, and then
It doesn't have it now.
Oh,
Used to have it.
oh, okay.
It's mostly fixed now.
What did you ask?
I asked him
Okay.
got the hot feet in.
So the
He doesn't have enough.
the staring is most likely when?
it is worse after drinking and eating. It's worse after meals, and then when he's out drinking, I know things aren't great.
Because?
He'll go into these mini, I know it goes along with this total vacant and tick twitch episodes that happen. It's part of it. He'll kind of come out of it and then go right back, take some drinks, maybe lick some salt. He loves salt. And then go back into a corner when it's bad. He always wants to be in this one corner.
does he ever seem to be in pain when he's peeing? Or like irritated when he's?
It's slower now. Everything is slower, so he'll get into position, and it's like, this whole slow thing.
Comes out slow.
And once it comes out, it's normal.
Okay.
It's the pre part that's
Okay.
like,
Getting set, getting his body.
and he
in position.
pees when he wakes up, so he's kind of out of it or something anyway, often.
But he doesn't seem to be like, it
Doesn't seem
hurts,
painful.
you know.
But, sorry, just going back. So he's eating and he's drinking, and after he's drinking, there's more of that sort of staring kind of thing, or, okay, alright.
And sometimes after he goes to get the drink, he's like can't get comfortable. He's like walking around and can't decide where to go.
Like disoriented?
It can be disoriented. It could be that, yeah. I can't tell if it's that or restless, uncomfortable.
Okay,
Does the twitching have any relationship to his eating or drinking?
It's worse after.
Worse after, including the
Worse
staring.
after drinking.
Yeah, and like this whole stuff will happen after they get fed a meal twice a day, and after that meal, especially in the evening.
So
No,
not this
both.
kind of meal, not just hay, but you mean like
They're grain.
grain.
They get like a little bit of grain, which he had right before everybody came. And then I would say when he was standing there before eating, he was starting to do this ticky twitchy, and you guys were all here, but he was like a little, just sort of.
So like the
it's
movement of the
he's
jaw
metabolizing
itself?
alcohol from his brain, like.
So that
Job
he
was side to
so he
side.
likes the sun, but the sun makes him worse. He likes to eat, but the eating makes him worse.
It sucks to be him.
All the joy in life.
So is there a sense that there's like a
Feel ya,
physical,
buddy.
it's the physical action of the eating as opposed to the digestion of,
I mean, he's
Do you know what I
fine
mean? 'Cause
while
it's-
he's eating, like he's not
so showing us
having
in distress, yeah.
problems, and it's a few minutes later, like being filled up.
alright, so you've got like all this excitement, and then eating, almost like excitement, anticipation, eating, and then this sort of disorientation, neurologic stuff.
But does he stop eating, or do you have to measure the things that you give to him? Would he go on eating?
So these episodes stop him from eating. Usually after grain, they go right to hay. They just got new fresh hay, and they're all excited to eat. And he goes up to it, sniffs, and like completely like backs off and like goes into these
And then what do
episodes.
you do?
And then I've tried everything.
And in this episode, the first episode that he goes into will be this sort of disoriented and then ticky twitchy, or disoriented and then sort of staring?
I'm not even sure it's disoriented actually. It's like he goes to sniff, backs up. I think it's like pain or maybe dizziness from putting his head out or something to the hay. It's like he wants to eat but can't.
So if he goes out and eats grass, does he get like that?
It's hard. I mean, he eats hay all day, you know, on and
Well, I'm
off.
just curious if he does weird stuff after the grain. I mean, what if he has a grain sensitivity or mold or something
He
in the
barely
grain?
gets any grain. It's actually, it's like an excuse to give him all
Okay,
supplements.
so what's the position of the grain? How is it again?
On the ground,
It's on
which
the
is
ground.
best for,
Right,
right.
Right.
Okay.
And he's picky, twitchy, and vacant together in those
Yeah.
moments right after.
It's
It's
all
like an
happening.
intense,
And then if, for
abrupt.
you to get him, for him to be out of that, you call him or you walk up to him or,
Yeah, but it doesn't last, so I interrupt it.
And you
um,
can.
he gets out of it and then gets back
While I'm
into
sitting
it.
there interrupting it, and then goes back to it, and it takes, and it could last anywhere from 20 minutes. Sorry.
Yep,
You can't turn that way.
yep.
Turn that way.
So it's just time that'll get better.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 minutes to an hour.
And then when is he most aware? When is he most cognitively present and functioning properly and so on?
Right before meal, in
Yeah,
a way.
yeah, okay. Okay.
Does the acting out before a meal happen when you or Jody or whoever's taking care of him come out and are about to like do the feeding? Or is it like let's say you didn't come out, but it was that time to eat, would he be acting that way?
He does, and then it just elevates. I mean, he's also alert after he comes out of these episodes. And he starts to eat hay, and he's like, he's eating, and he's interactive, and it kind of feels normal for a minute. So that's another alert time post these episodes. We did talk to one actually. Yeah, it was my first time.
Okay, all right. I think that's kind of, those are the main pieces. You sort of turn them into rubrics. You repertorize, you see the remedies that come out, and then you just do a differential diagnosis on them to see what remedy comes up. And I think you're looking at a sort of a ticky, twitchy remedy. I think you're looking kind of at a remedy like, you know, I'm not saying Sakuda, but like a remedy like Sakuda, or a remedy that has this sort of neurological parts much more. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that horses often with like central nervous system stuff, you see it in their legs before their face usually. And the fact that this has stayed just on his face has been.
Not always. I mean, sometimes you just see the
head shaking, you're
face,
talking
head, and neck
Right.
sort of thing.
So what does that mean that he's lost that muscle on the top? What does that go along with? Does that go along with a particular illness or something?
Could be
or-
this Cushing's, which he doesn't have yet, this kind of, but mostly, it's definitely old age, and then all exercise and writing is totally stopped. So he was starting, you know, I think last summer there was like, or spring, you know, the bad breathing, then into all the diarrhea, then now this. So it's like lack of exercise, lack of.
So it's possible to get that back, is that what you're saying?
Often you can start to get it back. I mean, and he's old, and so. But I think the older they get, the harder, just like a person.
But if he were ridden, he actually would get some muscle on his
Ridden
back?
or even more, the ground exercises. I stopped doing a bunch of sort of just on the ground stuff because the effort felt disorienting with his head,
Right.
the breathing. We put a little kid on his back like a week ago, and he kind of breathed hard. This little like 6-year-old boy. I was like, okay,
Just too much.
it's
Yeah.
crazy that that's too much.
Right.
And chiropractor's seen him, and
Yes.
neck is fine.
He gets some TMJ jaw stuff. It's been adjusted. Same with his SI or whatever, but like nothing horrible. And I guess I don't know. Should I talk the Helleborus? He's on that right now, and
Everyday succeeds, is that what you said?
yeah, for 1 month. And I would say that like it's less severe. you know, these symptoms, but they are very much still there. But less closing of the eyes, less jaw stuff.
Yep.
But no clear, like, getting better,
Yeah.
just less severe.
How old did you say he is?
27-ish?
Wow, you had him this whole,
No, just 7 years. New.
is that extremely old for a horse?
No, it's like somebody in their 70s or 80s maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
She says.
But,
This is really hard.
Which
But this
means
is
it could
like
be a young or an old.
70s and 80s, but after having multiple like bad things, it's like
Okay.
Did he have a bad life before he came to you?
He had a pretty cushy life, except for that he was stuck in a little stall in somebody's backyard in Long Island. But a really fancy, nice, caring. But it wasn't all this out in the open stuff, which technically should be better for horses. I mean, he's in a way, yeah. had all
So he
this stuff
doesn't like to
happen.
be out there?
He loves to be out there mentally.
Maybe
He
he needs
chooses.
a graphic of 6.
Well, yeah.
okay. All right. Let's. Will somebody email me those? Okay. Great.
Whoever's right.
Let me email.
I touched it.
Email me those things, and then I will sort of email something back to everybody.
Cool.
That'd be great.
Okay. Good.
Wonderful.
Good.